Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Megan Wagner, and I'm representing BraunAbility as the host of our Disability Employment discussion. October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, a time to talk about the important contributions people with all types of disabilities are making in the workplace and how we can increase that number with greater access to accommodations and a better awareness of the specific benefits of hiring from the disability community. As much as inclusion is a topic of conversation in 2021, people living with physical disabilities still feel largely left out, especially when it comes to the workplace. Each year, BraunAbility publishes our Drive for Inclusion report card to get a snapshot of the state of inclusion from our driving force, our online survey community of individuals with mobility challenges and their caregivers. Here are just a few highlights. The majority of the driving force agree that businesses and organizations are not doing enough to create equal employment opportunities for those with mobility disabilities. Despite increased national conversation regarding diversity, equality, and inclusion, both the driving force and the general public gave their employer a C grade for accessible accommodations. Only 7% of the driving force gave their employers an A grade. And 70% of the driving force say what they want most is for businesses to simply seek input from people with mobility challenges when designing or developing products or accessible accommodations. So it's clear we still have a long way to go when it comes to a truly inclusive, accessible workplace and society in general. Our guests today are both disability advocates with goals to do just that. And it's my pleasure to now introduce Ben Trockman and Madeline Delp. Ben Trockman is the Diversity and Inclusion Specialist at Old National Bank. After graduating from the University of Southern Indiana, he joined Old National Bank in 2014 and has since helped the company become a leader in disability employment and inclusion. He continuously enhances recruiting efforts for people with disabilities by rethinking the hiring and onboarding process. He serves on the Special Olympics Indiana Board of Directors, the Alumni Council of the University of Southern Indiana, the Indiana Able Authority Board, and has been a passionate supporter of Habitat for Humanity of Evansville. Welcome, Ben.
Wow, what a nice intro. Proud to be with you.
Thank you. And Madeline Delp launched her career as a public figure after winning the national competition Miss Wheelchair USA. Spending the year traveling and speaking across the United States, she established her reputation as a deeply moving and inspirational keynote speaker and has been hired for major events from the North Carolina Governor's Mansion to the U.S. Senate. In 2017, Madeline founded her nonprofit Live Boundless, and since then, she and her team have delivered over 400 wheelchairs to people around the world to help further access and mobility inclusivity. Thank you for joining us, Madeline.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you both here today, and we're looking forward to a productive conversation. Let's just go ahead and get started with our first question. So, right off the bat, many employers have preconceived notions about the capabilities of individuals with physical disabilities. Madeline, what assumptions have would-be employers made of you in the past?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues is that employers think that all people with disabilities are the same and that it can be cookie cutter issues, but the reality is we're all different. And one of the issues that I had when I was first applying for jobs was I went to an interview and the hiring manager said, "We absolutely love you. You would be perfect for this job, but we can't hire you because you're in a wheelchair and because you wouldn't be able to reach something." And I was absolutely devastated and really took it very personally because I just thought negative things about myself because of it. And it took me realizing that it's because these employers can be so closed-minded and they don't think about how we can work together to make a solution. I mean, when it's something as simple as moving product from high shelves to low shelves. You think that's pretty easy, but so many employers just get to the box and they're not willing to have that conversation of what it would take. So I think, well, as the driving force, if we can start to make these companies question what their attitudes are and what their normal procedures are and how we can shift them to cater to each person who's beautifully unique in every way, then we can.
Yeah, it's about accommodating, right? Making those accommodations. How about you, Ben? Have you witnessed anything like that? Employers making assumptions where you've been in the past?
Man, assumptions is the key word, isn't it? I don't know if I can share anything more articulately than Madeline, but I'll share a short story about an employee, a leader at our company formerly that encountered an issue that really opened his eyes. And although this is not a mobility challenge issue, this is someone with a visual impairment. I think it reflects exactly the attitude and the assumption that needs to be changed. And so our former CFO at Old National many years ago, or half a dozen years ago, was paired as a mentor with a young lady by the name of Madeline. It's something that I do. It's pair. I know, not that Madeline, a different Madeline. Don't take this story away from me just yet, Matt. I'll clarify. Madeline Smith. And Madeline is a young lady who has a visual impairment, but she's also a double major in finance and accounting. And when I paired our CFO and Madeline Smith as mentor and mentee, basically to learn from each other and to help build confidence and help build preparedness for the rest of her college career and prepare for her employment, Chris, our former leader and CFO, openly questioned, how is someone like Madeline with a visual impairment going to succeed in the workforce? Because he didn't know about assistive technology. And one thing, or a couple of things that Chris learned very quickly is that Madeline was completing her degree and she was succeeding in an above average way. That assumption was incorrect. He learned that Madeline was using these assistive technology devices that he wasn't aware of prior to those accommodations. And he quickly learned that Madeline had just returned from a trip to Europe where she traveled to 15 different countries, 5 of them all by herself. And so the idea of the assumptions in Chris's mind that Madeline Smith may have some limitations because of her visual impairment were incorrect. And so to Madeline Delp's point is that many people, whether you're a leader or you're an HR person or a recruiter, many times just don't know about disability and don't know about the assistive technology that's out there and don't know about the way that we overcome our disability. So I would say that assumptions are some of the biggest issue. But with experiences and great panel discussions like this, hopefully we can overcome some of those assumptions and show what we are really all about.
Yeah, I love that. So remember accommodations, think about the possibilities before you see the roadblocks. And then assumptions, that's another roadblock entirely. Just being aware that we all have assumptions and stopping before we let those in the conversation. So Thank you both. Next question. As difficult as COVID has been, there's actually been a bit of a silver lining for people with disabilities. Ben, have you found something positive when it comes to the increasingly virtual workplace?
Are you kidding? Heck yeah. So just a quick story here is something that I have built in to recently my role at Old National Bank is business development. And as Madeline Delp and I were discussing earlier about the limitations on people with physical disabilities, those of us in wheelchairs, on being able to jump on a plane and travel very easily, business development is really a thing where, I or whomever would be in charge of creating relationships need to be in person, a breakfast, a coffee, a lunch, a dinner, going to events. Now that employers realize and businesses realize that doing business virtually, that virtual work works, it makes business development, it makes accomplishing tasks, building friendships and relationships much easier. So an example of what has happened recently is one of my colleagues that is 3 hours north of me, we participated in a call with a not-for-profit that we wanted to do some business with. We had a good idea to partner with, and we wanted to build a relationship, but we didn't know him that well. Well, my colleague Mark, who again 3 hours north of me, is sitting in the room in Indianapolis, close to you, Megan, and I was on the big screen, talking about our commitment to disability inclusion and some of the things that I was the quote expert on. Mostly me just telling a lot of bad jokes and making the long pauses a little bit more entertaining. But, months or years ago, the idea of having someone on a big screen not in the room was unacceptable or sounded very weird. And so, when it comes to the quote blessings of COVID, the acceptance of virtual work, the acceptance of being present virtually, it allows us individuals who may not be able to travel as easy, so much easier to participate in business meetings and participate in work in general.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And it also kind of relieves a bit of the burden on the employer as well if they're concerned about maybe the cost of modifications that may be needed. That virtual option, it's been proven to be effective, and in many cases, maybe even more effective than in-person work. And you can have the benefits of hiring from the disability community without having to incur, a huge expense. Madeline, is there anything else you would share on that topic?
Well, I think Ben made the best point for sure, but I have benefited in my own way because I was actually able to get a job during COVID where I was able to work completely online, and I didn't realize how much I needed that because I have a lot of pain, and sometimes my pain can be really bad to the point where it's hard to leave my apartment. And because I was able to get a job where I'm working completely online, it really opened up a whole world of flexibility for me to be able to work around, what my body is doing. I think that's huge for people with disabilities is because, while we can do so many things, we also have to work with a very unpredictable body. And sometimes that's pain, sometimes that's your bladder not working right, or whatever could be going on. And just to be able to have that flexibility because of more virtual options, and the more jobs that are available right now, just has been a huge help for so many people. So excited to be.
Yeah, that you bring up a great segue. There's this new phrase going around about the number of employees who are leaving their jobs. You know, it's being called the Great Resignation. And do you think that it's a moment in time that is actually a really great opportunity for our audience, or for anyone with living with a disability right now? What should they be thinking when they hear that phrase, Great Resignation?
Oh, yes, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. It's just, first of all, COVID has like shook, shook up our world in such
Mm-hmm.
a way, because we're all looking at our jobs in a new way, at our society in a new way. And because we are basically transforming how we do our jobs and we do our lives, we're able to insert a lot more opportunities for those with disabilities, because this restructure can include us in great ways. And to go back to your point, there are so many jobs that are open now, and employers are getting a bit desperate. And you see that all around, like whenever you're driving, you see now hiring, now hiring. And as somebody with a disability, this is what I did when I got my new job, is I presented a proposal where I said, look, I know that you really need this position, and you've never had somebody like me before, but not only can I do this job and do it exceptionally well, I'm going to be able to bring a whole new world of diversity and new ideas and equality to your business that you've never had before. I'm not only the first woman to work at this company, but I am the first person with a disability. And so that brings more ideas and opportunities for them. And I think they realized that. And that's why they, in the end, got really excited about hiring me.
Excellent. That's so great. Ben, how about you?
Well, I would double down on what Madeline presented. That particular example of the employer being able to hire, quote, someone that they've never hired before. Madeline, I would say that's because your personality and who you are, not your disability, and that is, quite frankly, what makes us individuals with disabilities, individuals that persevere through different life experiences, so incredibly special. We become, I would say, better versions of ourselves after life-changing injuries. To go back to your question, Megan, with the Great Resignation happening, it kind of goes back to the previous question there and what Madeline shared. There are lots of jobs open. Employers need people of all abilities, backgrounds, anybody that can show up. And now that we're able to participate virtually, whether that's our current job, expanding on current responsibilities, or finding individuals to fill new positions, there's just a lot of opportunity for flexibility and for us to participate in a more active and full way.
Yeah, it's really just an interesting time in so many ways, but in regards to today's topic, you have COVID in a virtual workspace, you have this Great Resignation, and then thirdly, you have companies who are publicly saying they're committed to DE&I, so diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. So knowing that, what would you tell someone who was applying to a job, someone with a disability, how to apply that DE&I knowledge to their interviews? Ben, I'll let you start this one.
All right, I was going to wait. Ladies first is always I've been told. But, man, what a perfect time in the world between COVID and between the strong commitment from many companies across the United States who, as you said, Megan, are putting strong emphasis on DE&I. I think that this is the time for individuals of all abilities and backgrounds to really take control. You can choose the company that you believe in. I strongly believe in that now is the time that you, as an individual, a candidate, have the power to choose the right company for you. And so spend extra time researching the companies that you're applying for. We don't want to be in that situation that Madeline described earlier, that, well, because you have a disability, we don't want to hire you. Well, I would say to that if you're having that conversation, if that topic is even brought up, then you are not at the right company. And so I would say that right now, in the DE&I space, and knowing that that is a passion for many employers, man, we have the power to make a strong choice to the employer that we want to pursue. So I think it's an exciting time between the last three things we have brought up, between the resignation, the great resignation, COVID, and DE&I. It makes for a perfect and a very opportune time for individuals in our sector of the world to be choosy about where we want to go and apply, and really to have the power to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So the perfect opportune storm, a storm we're happy to see come around. Madeline, how about you?
Yes, well, Ben and I like to piggyback off each other, and I will just continue that. He brings up such a great point of it's a great opportunity. And one of the things I love talking about is how when you have something that's a challenge, how do you find the inner seed of possibility within that challenge that can be of greater benefit to you in the end of the day? And when you're applying for a job, I truly believe you can use that challenge to your benefit. And one way you can do this is think about, how does your disability provide an opportunity of benefit for the employer? You want to do that anyway. You want to be prepared. You want to know how you can help your employer improve their business, grow what they're growing. But when you're using your disability, you think it's going to help them bring in more customers. It's going to help them create a more inclusive, equal workforce and mindset. It's going to help them have new ideas. And at the end of the day, it's going to improve profits. I mean, we've seen that through the driving force research that, businesses do benefit from having a more inclusive workforce with people with disabilities, people of all different shapes and sizes. And if you come in guns a-blazing into your interview being like, look, here is why you want me, because this is how I'm going to help you grow in ways you never thought you could grow before. I mean, you're going to take them by surprise, and they're going to be like, whoa, I never thought of that. So that's how you can use that new push to your benefit, because you're going to make them aware that, hey, this is a big deal. Companies all around are making this a priority, and this is how you can do it too.
Yeah, I love that. So technology is the foundation now for work for all of us. So it's how we're able to do what we're doing today. When it comes to the best products or platforms in regards to technology that have enabled you to do your job better, what are the ones that you recommend to colleagues or to employers who are thinking about, getting serious about hiring from the mobility challenge community?
Well, first I would say that I think Madeline is going to get a couple job opportunities after this conversation. So make sure your phone is on silent. It might be happening right now. There you go. So I'll be plain and simple. I think that the platforms that I can share my answer in 2 words. This is what I wrote down before our conversation. It's 2 words and 2 names, all in the same, and those are Alexa and Siri. My God, my newest best friends, and they make everything so easy. We might be overthinking it when we talk about accommodations, and we'll get to that point. And one other question I know that we have coming up, but most technologies that help everybody also help us. Being able to automate things to be a little bit easier, to be a little bit faster. Sure, I use voice recognition software on my computer. Not everybody is going to do that. We don't have to be terribly familiar with that. But the little things that make life a little bit easier, and even just being on WebEx, Zoom, and those other things, I think that, the accommodations, the technology, although there are people out there that will use some fancy stuff that we've never heard of, and you'll find out soon. I think if you just keep it simple and don't think too in depth, and know that your iPhone or you poor Android users, and using Alexa for many different things, man, our country, our entire world is becoming more adept at technology, and it's really those little things that are helping us each and every day.
Yeah, I think of it as like the great equalizer.
Right.
You have Siri and Alexa helping all of us. You don't have to have a disability to be relying on them every day. That Amazon, home delivery. It's, as somebody who lives in rural America, it's pretty nice to have the access. Maybe it takes an extra day, but I can still get the same products that somebody in Chicago is using. So it has some serious pros for all of us. Is there anything you'd add to that, Madeline?
Well, Ben took all the good ones, but I
usually do.
I do have another one that most people wouldn't even think about when you say technology, but I've got to say my car. And for those of you who don't know, if you haven't followed me, which I talk about it all the time, I have my BraunAbility adaptive vehicle that has the ramp come out where I can get in with no problem and pull back the seats, flip it around, get in, and go to town. And I think people don't realize how much effort, like somebody like me, has to use every day to do simple activities. And getting into the car used to be one of them, where I would break down my chair every single day and have to chuck it in the back. And just by the time I finished with my first meeting or my first appearance, I'd be done. I'd be wiped out. And just having things like that make ease of movement, ease of lifestyle just so dramatically different. That saved my life. And I think for so many others, it's the same. And it's just one example of a technology that drastically changes how somebody is able to do a task. And those technologies are out there. So, when employers make these assumptions about what people can do, I think it's because they're in their box and they don't think about all of the possibilities out there. And I'm hoping that, with this new push of DEI, it's they're going to be able to have these technologies in mind and think about what's possible. I mean, normally I still show my car off to people and they're like, wow, I had no idea that was even out there. And so that's like the same response that employers will have when they realize, like, look, it's not this isn't your mama's car or this isn't your mama's place. This is something that's so much more inclusive where anything's possible.
Yeah, it is amazing that it's 2021 and people still don't know that you can have a physical disability and drive a car and do so independently. So I'm sure you get those moments coming out of the grocery store when you're getting in your vehicle and just seeing sort of that spaceship effect of the ramp coming out, and wow, I didn't know something like that was possible. So we appreciate the nice BraunAbility plug there. But yeah, that's when there's a time and place for the virtual workspace to leave the virtual workplace, and when that time comes, BraunAbility is there for each of you, I know, and the rest of the community too. So piggybacking off of what's been alluded to earlier, there may come a time where accommodations need to be made by an employer if they've hired somebody that has a physical disability and they get just stressed out, concerned about the expense of doing so. Maybe to the point where they decide not to hire from that space because they think it's going to be cost prohibitive. So, Ben, how would you refute that?
Well, guess what? I have positive news for you. If you think it's going to be expensive, well, you're wrong. So according to the Job Accommodation Network, JAN, it's the official source. I promise you. If not, you can Google it if you don't trust me, and I don't blame you. But the Job Accommodation Network says that 56% of accommodation requests are a big whopping $0 in costs. And the additional 44%, you see the math that I did there, cost $500 or less. So if you are an employer out there and you haven't made the decision to hire from the disability community or engage in the disability community or start having conversations because of costs, have no fear. The cost is much less than you might anticipate.
Yeah. 0 is my favorite cost, I think. That's great news to hear. Yep. Madeline, would you add anything?
Wow. I mean, I'm still amazed by that fact, Ben. Thank you. But I think I'm going to go back to the fact that if employers will stop and think about how they can find creative solutions instead of in the box. I mean, we live in a corporate world where in corporations it's like you have to do things a certain way. But if you take a step out of that and realize that if you just do some tweaks, then, you know, you can make it happen. I worked at a movie theater for my first job, and they had recently made an accommodation in the box office to where everything was high except for one of the places, and they said that I think it was right about $500 there, Ben. So you nailed it, and it wasn't as expensive as they thought it'd be, and so I could still work there and have my own desk where it wasn't coming above my head. So yeah, just another example of you can make it happen. If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, I love that example. I can't believe that we're almost at time. This is really just flying by. But before we close, I want to make sure that you each have the chance to answer one last question, and that is, if you could only give 3 pieces of advice to somebody out there in the job market, somebody with a mobility challenge who is maybe a little nervous or would just like to hear from experts like yourselves, what top 3 pieces of encouragement or advice would you give them? And this time, ladies first. Madeline.
All right. Well, the first one is the one that seems simple, but it's the most important, and that's confidence. You have to be able to go in knowing your worth and knowing that no matter what that employer says or no matter what anybody says, you're worthy, that your disability does not define you. And so you need to know without a shadow of a doubt that you deserve to be a member of society, a productive member of society who is doing the job that they love. And when you go in that way, it changes the game, because then the employer's like, okay, all right, they know what's going on. But then after that, you have to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. It's hard to take a hard look at our weaknesses, because as human beings, we don't like to face the facts of, what we're not good at. But when you know those, you can maximize your strengths and learn how to manage your weaknesses in a positive way. And when you know those, you can convey those to your employer and be very honest about what you're really strong at and what you need help with. And the employer appreciates that. And finally, be prepared when you're going into an interview. Know all the facts about the company that you can possibly find, so that you can create a plan of how you can be the most benefit to them possible. And when you do that, you're going to be in the top 10 or 5% of people who are applying, because most people don't think of creating a plan that will actually help the employer. So it's simple, but very effective at the end of the day.
Yep.
And what
Yep.
you hear from Madeline is advice that you would give to an individual with or without a disability.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared, be bold, and be you. Those are my three topics or subjects to prepare for. Be prepared, be ready, know all the things about the employer, as Madeline said. Be bold, never let anything stop you, and be you, because if you're not you and they don't accept you, you'll find something better anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's never been a better time to find a better home when it comes to a place of employment. So I'm really energized and excited about this conversation, and I hope our viewers are too. And I think the disability community has a really great opportunity to make a statement right now. So I hope everyone can take to heart the great advice from our panelists today. So thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Ben. And if you're someone with a mobility challenge or a caregiver, please be sure to sign up as a member of BraunAbility's Driving Force. It's an online survey community where we can make sure to capture your opinions and your thoughts and make sure that we share those out in different formats like we have today. So you can visit our website to sign up. Thanks, everybody. Ben, Madeline, you're wonderful, and until next time, we'll see you.
Bye.
Thank you.